Book 2, Chapter 3 of the Nicomachean Ethics could be titled The Importance of Pleasure and Pain. Here, Aristotle notes that virtuous action is concerned with pleasures and pains. That is, virtue involves feeling pleasure and pain at the appropriate objects. Good people feel pleasure and pain at the right things, in the right way at the right time, and so on. But bad people have their pleasure and pain responses badly wired. They enjoy things they should not enjoy, and they're pained by things that should be pleasing to well-regulated adults. By the end of this chapter, Aristotle will conclude that virtue has to do with actions that cause us pleasure and pain, and becoming a good person will require us to study these still further. Let's take a look at the text now.
We must take as an indication of a person's states the pleasure and pain supervening on what he does, because the person who abstains from bodily pleasures and finds his enjoyment in doing just this is temperate, while the person who finds doing it oppressive is intemperate. And the person who enjoys facing up to danger, or at least does not find it painful to do so, is courageous, while he who does find it painful is a coward. For virtue of character is concerned with pleasures and pains. It is because of pleasure that we do bad actions, and pain that we abstain from noble ones. It is for this reason that we need to have been brought up in a particular way from our early days, as Plato says, so we might find enjoyment or pain in the right things, for the right education is just this.
Okay, let me stop here for comment. I would like you to try to brainstorm some things that a good person should find to be pleasant, and some things that a good person should feel pain and not pleasure when they confront or experience or think about. And then ask why. Why is it the case that some things not only do we find pleasant, but we should find them pleasant? And what's wrong with the person who doesn't find these things to be pleasant? What's wrong with the person who feels pain where he should feel pleasure? The person who enjoys the sight of small animals suffering, for example. So brainstorm some examples, and we'll use those in our discussion later. In this passage, Aristotle also refers back to Plato and Plato's theory about education. You'll recall that Plato's case for censorship in Book 2 of Republic depended upon his concern for the right education of the youth, especially the youthful guardians. Here, Aristotle says, for Plato, right education from our earliest days is what allows us to find pleasure and pain in the proper objects. So my last question for you here, is this correct? Is this part of education today? Do you find, in looking at your education, or in looking at education that's happening today that you may be taking part in, that part of education consists in training people to feel pleasure at the right things in the right way at the right time, and pain at the right things in the right way at the right time? Again, specific examples will be helpful here, so please think of some.
The fact that punishment is based on pleasure and pain is further evidence of their relevance, for punishment is a kind of cure, and cures by their nature are effected by contraries. Again, as we said recently, every state of the soul is naturally related to and concerned with the kind of things by which it is naturally made better or worse. It is because of pleasures and pains that people become bad, through pursuing or avoiding the wrong ones, or at the wrong time, or in the wrong manner, or in any other of the various ways distinguished by reason.
In the middle of page 26, Aristotle says something else interesting. He says, it is because of pleasures and pains that people become bad. So here's another interesting claim for us to evaluate. Is it true that it's pleasure and pain that leads to people becoming bad people? That is, they get their pleasure and pain reactions miswired. We'll save this question to discuss later on, but please give it some thought right now.
We assume then that virtue will be the sort of state to do the best actions in connection with pleasures and pains, and vice the contrary. Let it be taken as established, then, that virtue is to do with pleasures and pains, that the actions which produce it also increase it, or, if they assume a different character, corrupt it, and that the sphere of its activity is the actions that themselves give rise to it.